Welcome to 5 at 5 with Stone Law Offices. I'm attorney Brendan Bybee with 5 minutes on your estate planning documents and why the documents alone are not enough. Now, many people think of estate planning primarily as collecting certain essential documents, and that the documents themselves are the estate plan. That's not entirely true, and to be honest, oftentimes it's attorneys' faults, our fault for as attorneys for not clearly distinguishing the difference. When you come in to talk to one of us, we want to go through and make a plan for your estate, how it's going to be transferred, who it's going to be transferred to, who's going to be handling those steps along the way, how we deal with medical and other personal emergencies during your lifetime, and avoid unnecessary complications or court actions or taxation that, again, can be avoided through proper planning. That said, the plan itself is not just encapsulated in this collection of documents that get prepared for you. And you can't just necessarily take all this collection of documents that we prepare for you and say, okay, everything's going to work out perfectly. Now, if you think back to kind of your school days, you might remember something that you learned in a science class, perhaps a physics class, dealing with causation and how you start a reaction, and there are necessary causes and sufficient causes. Something that's necessary, it needs to be involved in part of the process in order to make this certain result occur. But something can be necessary without by itself causing that result. And so you can have something that's necessary, but it's not sufficient in and of itself. Something that's sufficient means if you have this, then you're going to get this result. That's kind of how you need to think about estate planning documents. For one thing, they're not the plan. They are the way that we implement that plan or provide for that plan to occur. So we talk about the plan is really, what are your goals? What are the obstacles to getting there? And how are we, what are we doing to get you there? And so that's where the documents come in as those tools to implement that plan and provide for the possibility of achieving the result that you have in mind with your estate. But the documents themselves, really what they, like I said, they're tools in that, but really what they do is they create that possibility. They provide circumstances where your result can be achieved. So you have to have those documents. They're necessary elements in the picture here. If you don't have the will, we've got an intestate succession. There's more opportunity for people to fight over who's going to be involved in that as a fiduciary or agent, as an executor, and as beneficiaries. So you introduce some complication there, and you have some additional expense. If you have the trust, obviously, you can avoid probate for anything that's owned by the trust. So it provides a certain opportunity in that plan to say, I want to avoid probate, hence I have a trust. Well, there's other things that need to be done. When you come and you get all of those documents, we've created an opportunity for your estate to be administered in the way that you desire. But there are other things that need to be done. One critical thing, and one of the first critical things after you get your estate plan documents together, is to implement your actual plan, which is now since the plan is I've got these documents together so that my estate can avoid probate and do et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you've got that trust. Now you have to make sure your assets are in that trust, whether that's having us help you put those assets in there, or whether that's you going on your own. If you don't do it, then again, you have the necessary documents, but they're not sufficient on their own. And if you haven't done that extra work to make sure that the assets are owned by your trust, that all of your planning is aligned in that way, then it's not going to give you the result that you expected. But let's say you've done even that much. So you've got your assets, you've got your documents, and perhaps we can talk about this as documents as well. You've done the asset transfers. You've done the document that transfers your house to the trust. You've done and recorded it with the county. You've done the document that assigns your LLC or corporate interest to your trust. Let's say all of that's been done. You've done the documents that ensure that your life insurance is going to pay into your trust. Let's say all that's been done. Again, is this enough to make sure everything goes as you wish? Well, in many cases, it might be enough, but not in all cases, and probably in most cases, there should be a little bit more done to really make sure that your plan can do what you want to do. Whether that's well, basically what we're dealing with there's expectations, there's people that need to be involved. There's always this human element. We're dealing with documents that are going to be interpreted by the people you named as trustees, the people you've named as beneficiaries to receive those assets, banks and other parties that have assets that belong to the trust that will have to be dealt with. So there's these other complications. So we have our documents and they're prepared well, correctly, and in the ideal manner to make our trust, our estate plan be able to be administered the way we want it. We have our assets in there. And we have now then all of the personalities that are involved that we also have to deal with. And so that's something that we like to do in terms of education, as an education component, is to know that you want to make this thing go right. The last sort of necessary input here is to make sure that there are appropriate expectations and awareness of what people's roles are and how the trust administration process is carried out, and the amount of time that takes, and other things to make sure that, one, the expectations are reasonable, the understanding of how to accomplish a good administration is known, at least in the basics, that they know us, they know where to go when they have a question about that, and when something does need to be done, so that we can help them avoid any of the pitfalls that can come from just not being an expert in trust or estate administration, and get to that finish line. That is, everything that I've had, I was able to have medical decisions made for me when I couldn't make them for myself. When I passed away, my property was administered in an efficient manner, without waste, without unnecessary conflict, and without taxes that could have easily been avoided. And the property is distributed to my beneficiaries in the way that is most impactful to them, avoiding things that I can anticipate in terms of divorces for any of those beneficiaries, or creditor issues that any of those beneficiaries have. So there really is a large picture here. And depending on the complication of your particular circumstances, the complication of your assets, or the personalities involved, you want to know that, one, that you have the necessary documents, that they're prepared well, but also that the trust is funded, that the assets are aligned depending on what your overall plan is, and that the people that are going to be involved are also brought up to speed so that they don't bring in that extra bit of uncertainty that can set your estate plan off in the wrong path. If you need help getting your affairs in order, getting your estate plan determined as a plan and documented properly, or you just want to have another look at that to make sure everything's still up to date, please get in touch with us right away, and we'll take a look at that and give you the counsel that you need.